Hello and welcome to Seguin ISD Assessment or LPAC Professional Development for Secondary Schools. In Seguin ISD, this is our workflow. We begin with administrator training, and then we have teacher training. Once teachers are trained, they are assigned teacher monitoring forms for assessment through Elevation. You will receive an email. Then, once those forms have been submitted, campus LPACs are held before testing begins. Documents are filed in student LPAC folders. We're going to start with the TEA LPAC Decisions Educator Guide. In this guide, we're going to show how LPACs are responsible for following administrative procedures, making decisions on an individual student basis. We're going to work as a committee to make decisions and maintain required documentation. Please note that the resource training refer to English learners or emergent bilingual. In federal law, it's ELs. In Texas, it's EB. Participation decisions for the TELPAS program. TELPAS and TELPAS alternate fulfill federal requirements for annually assessing English language proficiency for ELs in K through 12th grade. We assess language proficiency in listening, speaking, reading, and writing. For ELs receiving special education services, the LPAC works in conjunction with the ARD committee, and we are responsible for making and documenting participation decisions. When we're looking at holistically rated assessments in English learners receiving special education services, we want to evaluate how well he or she understands and uses English in the general curriculum. With rare exceptions, students should be able to be observed and rated meaningfully in each holistically rated domain. For secondary, that would be writing. Like all LPAC considerations, decisions must be made individually. The LPAC and the ARD committee collaboratively decide that assessment in a particular domain is not appropriate due to a student's disability. This could possibly be for students who are visually impaired or deaf and hard of hearing. We could, as a committee, choose to not test the student in that language domain on TELPAS. If we do make that decision, we must document and support the decision in the ARD committee documentation as well as the LPAC. Typically, this is in the Success Ed form called Supplement LPAC. This is only applicable for students who are taking the regular TELPAS test and are receiving special education services. This is not possible for students who are taking the TELPAS alternate. For TELPAS, all designated support decisions must be made in conjunction with the ARD committee, Section 504 committee, or appropriate team of people at the campus level. For TELPAS alternate, student performance described on the observable behaviors occurs while students have access to instructional accommodations and are in the classroom. We now have a Braille version of the TELPAS reading. This is a new test. Any student who cannot read Braille will not be required to take the TELPAS reading in Braille, but they can be exempt from the TELPAS reading section. Participation decisions for the STAR program. So we're going to look today at the STAR test, grades 3 through 8 in EOC, as well as the STAR alternate 2, grades 3 through 8 in EOC. LPACs make and document test participation decisions in accordance with the STAR program requirements. Understanding accessibility. So policies are divided into 3 main categories. We have accessibility features. This is available to any student who is taking the STAR test. Then we have designated supports. The appropriate team in this case would be the LPAC. The LPAC at the campus level determines and documents that the student meets the eligibility criteria for the designated supports. These are the resources you can find the designated support decisions. The LPAC's designated supports decisions must be made on an individual student basis. We want to base those decisions on the student's particular need for second language acquisition support and whether that student is routinely using that support in classroom instruction and testing. If we provide unfamiliar supports, it might hinder the student rather than help. Please note on EOCs, designated support decisions carry over from fall to spring and summer administrations. For ELs taking STAR in Spanish, the LPAC does have the sole authority to make designated support decisions for content and language supports, extra time, and oral signed administration. Students for whom the LPAC recommends these designated supports for English reading or English EOC assessments may not be reclassified at the end of the school year. However, if we assign these supports in math, science, or social studies, we can reclassify the student at the end of the school year. You will receive a document that has examples of classroom accommodations. These classroom accommodations support the student's need for content and language supports on STAR. Also on that document, we'll have an explanation of extra time as well as oral administration. The TEA requirements state that the student routinely and effectively uses these accommodations during classroom instruction and classroom testing. STAR dictionary policy. If a student needs a dictionary on the STAR reading or STAR or English EOC assessments, that does not prevent them from being considered for reclassification at the end of the year. ELs with parent denials. So when we have a student whose parents have denied bilingual or ESL services, they may not receive the following. They may not receive designated supports through the LPAC. They can through 504 or R, but not the LPAC. They cannot be tested in Spanish. They cannot receive the English 1 special provision, nor can they use the unschooled asylee refugee provisions. Please note that all parent denials are still required to be assessed annually with TELPAS or TELPAS alternate until they have met the reclassification requirements. Other assessment decisions. English 1 special provision. We know that sometimes when students arrive in the U.S., they are not prepared. They have not had sufficient time to learn English, and they depend heavily on instructional scaffolding. So the LPAC can decide to utilize the English 1 special provision. This is the document that must be completed for that student. This document will be held in the student's LPAC folder. Frequently asked questions, juniors and seniors. So if we have a junior or a senior L in our district who are required to take TELPAS, these Ls have previously met the participation requirements for STAR Alt 2, but have completed their EOC testing requirements and therefore not testing the spring. Should they take TELPAS alternate? If these Ls met participation requirements for STAR alternate 2 in the past, then they will be assessed with TELPAS alternate. Is TELPAS required for high school Ls who have met course requirements for graduation but need to pass STAR if they attend school only for STAR remediation? Ls in grades K through 12 are required to be assessed through TELPAS. However, as an exception, high school Ls attending only for STAR remediation are not required to take TELPAS because they have met their course requirements for graduation. Okay, so when you receive the email to give us feedback for accommodations or designated supports on the STAR or EOC for your students, you will log into Elevation. You'll click the monitoring tab at the top, and then the forms. There will be a list of students there, and you'll fill out the forms for those students. So we're going to watch a little video that shows you how to complete the designated form for our students.
Complete designated support recommendation forms. In Texas, LPACs are responsible for selecting appropriate assessment options and designated supports for each English learner. Designated supports are assigned based on the student's particular needs and what they use during classroom instruction and assessments. Many Elevation partners in Texas collect teacher input on designated supports using Elevation monitoring forms. Let's take a look at how to fill out these forms in Elevation. The Monitoring tab at the top of your screen has an indicator that shows how many upcoming and past due forms you have assigned for the current school year. To access your assigned forms, click the Monitoring tab from any page in Elevation. Keep in mind that monitoring forms also may be used for things like exited student monitoring, EL progress monitoring, and reclassification rubrics in your school district. We're just going to focus on designated support recommendation forms. On the monitoring page, you see all of your assigned and completed forms organized by form type and due date. To fill out your assigned forms, choose a form type and due date and click Open Forms. A queue of incomplete forms will open. Within the queue, forms are organized in alphabetical order by grade. You can track your progress at left as you complete your assigned forms. Key information about the student is accessible at the top of each form. To make your designated support recommendations, you must first select the assessment that corresponds with the form name. If your student is taking more than one STAR assessment this year, there may be more than one assessment in the dropdown. In order to ensure that your recommendation is reviewed in the appropriate LPAC meeting, it is important that you select the assessment that corresponds with the form name. Click the checkboxes next to the designated support that you recommend for the student on this assessment. Add a comment or justification, and answer any additional required questions on the form. Once you have completed the form, choose or draw your signature and click Sign As if your form requires an electronic signature. Once you are satisfied with your answers, click Submit at the bottom of the form. You cannot make changes to a form once it has been submitted. When you submit a form, you will have the option to print your completed form or to continue filling out assigned forms. Once you have completed your recommendation form, the LPAC will review this recommendation when determining which designated supports are most appropriate for the student, ensuring that your English learners are set up for success for STAR testing.
Thank you for attending this training. For the Assessment LPAC, your Certificate of Achievement can be found either at the location of this QR code or this bit.ly. Please download it, complete it, and turn it into your LPAC administrator. Have a wonderful day.